Okay, it looks like I am live. So the purpose of this is I've been temporizing for a while. I've been playing with SmartOS for a bit, and I've got some hardware, probably the worst hardware to run SmartOS on, or almost the worst, which is an old off-lease kind of cubicle monster i5 with which I upgraded to 8 gigs of memory. Right, so we're trying to hypervise on a 5-year-old i5 with 8 gigs of memory. So we will see how that goes. Let me just check here, make sure I'm actually outputting audio. It looks like I am. And so I was thinking, how am I going to do this, right? Because I wanted to review it. Would fit into the overall scheme of the Illumos distros I've been looking at. And this one kind of was hard, right? I was temporizing a little bit, like how do I do this one? And I figured probably the best way to do it was to just go live. And do some hypervising there, right? So show off some of the hypervising features, and I have some VMs, so both virtualized OS, so essentially SmartOS images, right? So Illumos running in zones, as well as I think I have one. Do I have one? Let's see here. Why is this not... Something's going on with that terminal. We will, yeah, it doesn't like me too much. Make sure all these work. We'll get by with 3 terminals. Yeah, those 2 work. Wonder what's going on with that one. I'll close it. Yeah, I'll close it. Okay, so yeah, so right now I just have zones running, and no actual KVM images, so no traditional virtualization going, just zones. And I guess the best place to start here is the vm-adm command, which is kind of the clearinghouse command that allows for all the modifications, creation, starting, stopping, etc., etc. And I'll go through the list of VMs here. So the only ones I think I have are multi-arch. So I have a build zone, which I use to build new SmartOS images. I tried making some modifications, and maybe if any SmartOS experts watch this, I probably didn't make all the right changes in all the right places, but I can't seem to get the promiscuous filtering to be turned off. So to set that as a configuration so that when a VM comes up, it will turn off for that link promiscuous filtering, which you need obviously for things like SimH. So I have to do that, turn that flag manually, right, with DLADM after the VM has been booted, right, and it doesn't persist between reboots. So whatever that is, and I thought I had made the correct changes. One of the great things about SmartOS is that a lot of this stuff is in Node, right? It's JavaScript. So, it's super easy to go monkey with it and create a new build. The build process is pretty easy. Let me know in a comment here if anyone is interested in seeing video on either building SmartOS, right? So we have our build VM here, our build zone, or doing a video on building packages from package source. So you do that in a zone as well. SmartOS is different in that you shouldn't do very much in the global zone, right? Anything you want to do should happen in an actual zone. So we can look at those in a later date. So let me go through these, and we'll start by shutting down some zones. And we'll take a look at what the commands are we have. Start, stop, create, really what you want for most of these things. Reboot. And everything is based on UUIDs. So let me stop a couple of these because I don't need them to be running. And they're just eating up some memory. We'll stop that guy and package build and build. And I'll talk about a little bit about the other other stuff I have here. I have an LX zone, so SmartOS does do LX zones. We have here one for running Alpha VM with Alpha VM free, so that's where my OpenVMS emulator lives, or Alpha emulator running OpenVMS lives there. And so this is taking a while, so it's probably got some stuff to clean up, which isn't a problem. So we'll put that in the background. We'll stop the next one here. This one should come down pretty easily. And the fan is spinning up. And we'll look at creating some VMs. Let me switch over here. So for the KVM stuff, I figure we could do Windows 10, NetBSD, and Slackware. In the course of this video, I think we can cover those, especially if we get started pretty quickly. The others, we're gonna maybe do some OS virtualization, so an LX zone, and if we get to it, and then a regular zone. Those are pretty straightforward and simple. So I guess let's get started, and I will start by, sorry, that's an email coming in. Let me start by creating a JSON file. So this is, I'm sure, going to be riveting streaming, but your definitions for VM are all in JSON, which I love. JSON is a great object serialization, deserialization format, right? Better than XML for just about anything. I probably should have shared something via NFS so we could have edited this with a nicer editor than VI, but in a pinch VI works. That's why it's good to know it. And we're going to set the brand, KVM. So the brands you get are Joyent, Joyent, KVM, and LX, and those are the Illumos. KVM is for virtualized and with KVM, and LX obviously is for an LX zone. We give it 2 CPUs, and I like to set an alias. You don't need this, but helps when you're looking up things. And we'll auto boot flag. For this, we're going to want it false because we have to boot with an ISO image for our first boot. And how much RAM do we give it? Let's give it 3 gigs. That should be plenty, I think. We're going to want resolvers. And now we need to set up some disks. And this is an array, but we're just going to put in 1 disk for the moment. So yeah, I just say it's an array, and I start with a hash. So we'll go back to an array. Set it as a boot disk. And we'll use virt.io. This means we're going to have to do driver disk, which Joyent provides. So that is handy. I think 40 gigs would be enough. We're not going to do any compression, although you can. So you can set up essentially this is going to create a zvol for the disk, and you can set any parameters you would in ZFS for that. The same thing if you do a zone, except it's just a data set. So if you can set compression for that data set. Pretty cool. Let me end that block. And we're going to do a similar block for NICs. So another array. And I'll take a second to talk about the NICs. I have 2 on here. One of them's an admin and one's external. And the reason I need to add the second NIC is Alpha VM Free wants a large packet size, and the Realtek's or RT Links, I forget what they are, RGE driver in this would not let me set an MTU above 1500. So I had to add an Intel card. So we'll put it as, I put it as tagged as external. We can take a look at that later if need be. And this is also going to be VirtIO. Since we're on a modern system, we can use VirtIO. And we want a net mask. So there's a lot of JSON filling out, and if you're doing this in a production environment, you'd probably use some tools to make your life easier. So you didn't have to. So either you'd write your own tools, which works for small setups. You'd use Joyent's own Smart Data Center, which I haven't had a chance to play with, but it looks pretty cool. Or there's another. There's an open source. I mean, I think Smart Data Center is open source. There is another product out there, open source project, called Project FIFO, which looks a little bit lighter weight than Smart Data Center, but also has lower requirements. So maybe another option. And that concludes our definition there. So let me go back over here and see how we're doing. Ooh. Yeah, so package build didn't want to stop. Nor did SimH. Yeah. So I don't know what's going on there. So we will give that a stop dash F to force it. I think I want a capital F there. So that's doing its stuff. We'll create this VM. So we have our VM. Now we have our Win 10 Pro listed here, and its brand of KVM. So I need to get that path, and we're going to copy these two ISO files. Copy them over to the root there, and we'll also get the drivers for VirtIO. Let me just see what's going on in there. Okay, now something goofy has happened there. Probably shut it down in the middle of something, so we'll shut down this one. Okay. Oh, one thing I forgot with Windows, and I looked this up. We are going to have to set the CPU type to something different. Let me take a look here at my notes. I seem to recall reading that we had to set the CPU type. Okay, we will set it to Core 2 Duo. So this is one of the other other uses of VMADM command is to update VMs or the information on a VM. So now we get to the gritty nitty and do this because we have to load two CDs. Let me go over to the root of that one. So see how we're bit of management software would help this. Although once you get things set up, it's not too difficult. I'm going to boot this guy. But for just this first boot, we're going to sell it to boot from CD. And give it 2 CD-ROMs. And because we put these in the root directory here, see, we're in the zones UUID root. We can refer to them with a slash. When SmartOS does KVM, it does so inside a zone. So double protection. I don't know. Can you break out of KVM? I don't know. That's kind of interesting. And we also have to set the model of these to be IDE. So hopefully that booted, and we'll get into it with VNC. We'll give the info command, and we get a port for VNC. I think we're in high quality. See how this comes through on the screen? Hey, not bad. So we are already up. I guess we proceed here. Yeah, I want to install now. Okay, well that is... Okay, so that one stopped. Yeah, so something's goofy is going on there. So let's take a look at what is running in these zones while I'm looking at it. And zones are pretty powerful things. So we'll look at what our running zones are. PRStat-Z. So we can see we're eating up a quarter of the CPU here in this one. That's our LX zone. We'll log in over there. And of course it got cut off here. So that's running Alpha VM free. So we're CentOS here, CentOS 6. And that's the process we're actually running inside our zone here. So the LX zones are fantastic, right? Because there exist, and frustrating, there does exist some software which is not available source code. You're stuck with Linux only binaries like Alpha VM free here, and with those you're going to have to come up with solutions. So either virtualization, full virtualization, or system virtualization. What we're doing here. Yeah, I don't have a product key. So full system virtualization, a la KVM here. Or you have to have a Linux machine. So here you get all the benefits of Lumos, so ZFS, dtrace, all the goodies, but can do so at bare metal speeds with the zone. So, and it's also protected. So, a binary, untrusted binaries, I really wouldn't trust running without some sort of a zone, right, or a containerization, right? You don't know what people put in there, especially ones like this that have to run as a privileged or semi-privileged process. They have to access network, etc. So, okay, so we have Windows going, and I'm flipping around here a little bit. Let me load the drivers here. Make this bigger. Scale it. Hopefully this drive did get picked up. Let me see where these are. Drivers via store. Yep. And why Windows 10, right? Microsoft has to know Windows 10 is modern. They got to know that it's up to date. Why aren't they shipping VirtIO drivers? Yeah, that's a good question. So we'll let that run. I guess let's create a zone, right? So have some templates here. Well, let me start from scratch here. No, I think we'll do this. And I guess we'll talk about, I'm a little disorganized. This is the problem with doing this live. So let's talk about the image admin. We'll list all the images I have. So image admin lets you pull images either for zones, brand of Joyent, or SmartOS here. So, you know, it's interesting that in one place they called it Joyent, in one place they call it SmartOS, and they'll call it a zone dataset. Linux, or for an LX zone with an LX dataset, or a ZVol. Yeah, I'm mixing my metaphors here, but the brands are LX, Joyent, and KVM. So I pulled down a few images here. So we can do CentOS 6 or Ubuntu 16 as an LX branded zone, and could do OpenBSD 6 as a KVM zone, and these others too. So we have a special image, a zone image for doing package build, and we elsewise here have the base multi-arch. But the other thing we can do here is an image admin avail to check to see what images are available, and there are a lot of available images. So we have an updated CentOS 6 here. Triton is now available. So let's take we already have the base multi-arch. We'll get base 32. We'll bring down a 32-bit image. We'll import that, and everything is based on UUIDs, which is super handy. So we'll pull this down. I'm going to have to go offline for just a second. I'm not going to put the stream offline, but I got to step away for a second. I misplaced something very important. So I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Couldn't find my water bottle, and mouth gets a little bit dry with anticipation. This is supposed to be a review, so let me take the first of many breaks to sing the praises of SmartOS. For my hypervising needs, this is probably going to do it for things that I don't necessarily want a kind of desktop-like interface. Where something like VirtualBox might still have a use, but for doing any sort of server virtualization, this kind of takes the cake. So we now have our image imported. So we'll modify this to create this new zone. Right? So this is the 32-bit base image. Base 32, and we'll give it, we'll say just a gig memory, and give it a 10 gig quota. So a couple things for zones. We have the max physical memory. We can also set CPU shares, things like that. And then a quota is going to be for your zone data set. So we'll need to give it a new IP. We'll call this 215, I guess. I really need to, come up with a better method for IP management. I copied the wrong thing. So let me, so that should work better. So it will gripe at you if you do something incorrect. See how Windows is coming along. Well, it's moving along. See what we're doing. Yeah, so we have a load average at 1.5. Let's see. We're going. See how my Z pool is going. So again, problem with a little off-lease, tiny small form factor PC, doesn't have a lot of the guts you might want. You know, not as mighty as a proper server. So hopefully everything goes well. I will be able to put something together that will have a bit more oomph. Right? So you know, Xeon decently fast with a goodly amount of memory, not just 8 gigs. So that ArcStat, so I can get my cache, the level 2 Arc, bigger, you know, which makes an impact, and get some nice SSDs for the intent log, so the slog device. So we get our list, and we have it there. We'll give it a Z login, and we have our zone up here. Now, inside the zone is where you should be doing all your work. Really, the global zone is just for managing the actual zones, and the package management facility provided is package source. So see about getting Emacs in here. So I see I actually do have 4 people watching this, which I think is really interesting because it's 5:15 in the morning on the holiday. Well, that's dropped down to 3. It's probably a peak at 4. But if you are in the chat, do leave a message if for the other KVM VM setup you'd like to see Slackware or NetBSD. I will do either. And also anything else you want to, any other features here, SmartOS, you want to take a look at in the process here. There we go, we now have Emacs. So package source, things work just like they do on NetBSD for package source, which I think is pretty handy. It's a good packaging system, and provided in that list of images is a mechanism to set up a zone to build packages, right? So, and it actually is pretty cool. It launches it in a change root, so you can get a consistent state for building packages. See how Windows is going. Yeah, still copying. Don't know why that's so slow. But the disk is certainly being used heavily here. I'm trying to think what other things. Let's set up an LX data, an LX zone as well. I don't know what IP I did, 215. So let's note some of the differences here. Brand obviously is changed to LX, and we have to add a tag for kernel version, which you should replace with whatever kernel version is there. Well, actually, I don't have an Ubuntu image, so let's fix that. We'll change that to Ubuntu. We'll see what images we have here. Yeah, so we got this Ubuntu. Pull that into the copy buffer. And we'll use the get command to get that. So we have that, and we have kernel version 4.3.0. Let me change kernel version to 4.3.0. Change my IP to 216. And I guess we'll leave it as 2 gigs and 50 gigs. Again, ZFS is fantastic. Why isn't that? I guess it is wildly popular. What am I doing? It's almost 6 in the morning. Having to remember my VI here. And we'll put that image UUID from the image ID available. And I obviously have a misplaced comma. Yeah. Invalid IP. Weird. I wonder what's going on there. Try 217. Invalid IP for Nick. Maybe I need a net mask. Well, that's not making a whole lot of sense. So I would use the IP notation rather than the IPs. So that seemed to work. I wonder if there's been some change in how that takes place. Now let me check in on Windows here. And that's cooking along. Okay. So we now have our Ubuntu LX zone. So Ubuntu 16.4. There we're Linux 4.3.0. Pretty cool. I have no idea how in Ubuntu to get the release information. I'm so used to, we'll do Debian version. So that's LX zone creation. This is, I guess it's time to move on to another VM. So we will do another KVM VM. So let me get over to we don't want that. Let me create a new VM here. A little bit of a mess here. So we will create OpenBSD 6. So use one of their provided KVM images, and that's the other way to do it. So what we're doing with Windows is building our image from scratch. This is using a provided zvol that has some helper scripts to set it up and bring in things like keys, etc. So let me set this up with a new JSON here. There's a lot of JSON typing. As I said, I probably should be using Project FIFO. NiFi is something I do in the day job. What am I thinking here? Hadoop stuff gets in the brain. We'll give it our list of resolvers again. We'll just put one in here. And how much RAM? What do we say? Let's just say 512 megs. Should be enough. One vCPU. I probably should install Emacs here in the global zone, which you can do. And again, we have an array of NICs. A lot of boilerplate here. I'll make this virt.io. I think, yeah, it should have virt.io drivers. There's our NICs, and now here's where it gets interesting, is we're going to, instead of building our own zvol, as we did for Windows, is give it an image UUID. And I don't think I saved that. True. And again, virt.io. Do we turn on compression? I think it's... Oh, the other nice thing about SmartOS, and I have to say this, is it has man pages. It has proper man pages for these things. So, question about VM-ADM, go to the man page. So we want to do compression. So disks, compression, VM type, KVM. Couldn't be simpler. So for old Unix hands, it makes sense. So we're going to turn this Z volume LZ4. What's next? And we're going to do a section internal metadata. We could add keys here. I'm not going to spend the time copying and pasting keys, but I'm going to give it my root password so that we can get in. Create that and check in on Windows, and Windows is still chugging along. I forgot to give it an alias. So that is our OpenBSD VM. Another cool thing is console from VMADM, and we actually get a text-based console for those things that support it. So let's take a look at what we have here. Where were we? There? See what compression is turned on. So, the images are, or the cores are compressed with gzip. And I'm misspelling things all over the place. And so what was our, yes, we were 9b3. Oh, so here's some stuff why you should be using ZFS for any emulation, because you can take snapshots. So here's our disk 0, and you can see we have a 1.3 compression ratio. And there's our LZ4 we set. Disk 0, that's going to be the ZVol. So it's taken a second to boot up here. In OpenBSD, I am probably stressing things a bit too much. Let me check on my chat here. I will thank you. From Germany. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now we should be able to log in with that password. Well, that's annoying. Won't let me log in. I probably should have set the admin. There's going to be an admin account. So control and right square bracket does that. So let me see if I can get to KVM here, and I'm sorry, get to VNC. And we report it is not letting me in for some reason. Yeah, not too concerned about that. Well, this might be a good idea to try something else. You can send updates to your VMs with the VMADM update command. So let's update and see if we can set an admin user and admin password, or set the admin password here. So I was updating some nicks, trying to get that promiscuous filtering to work. See if it'll allow us to update internal metadata. Maybe OpenBSD is so secure it doesn't let you set password as the password. Let's check for our UUID. We'll pipe our data here. So the other nice thing is VM admin works just like a, it has the filter capability, so you can pipe stuff in there. Okay, well that's annoying. I probably should have put my SSH keys there. Maybe we just need to reboot. So we can reboot the VM pretty easily. Let's see if we can watch it go down. And Windows is almost ready. So obviously with Windows you'd probably use remote desktop, right, rather than VNC. And my VNC is slow while I'm doing open broadcasting. The network, I guess I don't have the VirtIO drivers yet for the network. That's going to come back up. So yeah, I probably say SmartOS. But yeah, this hasn't been enough reviewing. I guess we've been playing around with it a little bit. It's fantastic, right? So anything I've wanted to virtualize, I have been able to. So Windows, and it does so efficiently, and with ZFS on the back end, which means I'm pretty happy with this. And it's difficult to review, right? So talking about, say, your average. Oh, they're such voyeurs. Talking about things like a Linux distro, there are differentiating things, right? I really would have to differentiate this from something like, ESIX or something, or ESXi, whatever that is. Hypervisor platforms. So it becomes a little difficult to try to see what its features are. But the way I see it, ZFS. LX zones, regular zones, and KVM hypervising means this is a win-win-win, right? And if you're into dtrace, you can dtrace what's going on in your zones from the global zone. So if you are, as say Joyent is, providing public cloud services, I mean, you can see why they built it. But for the home lab to be able to do, Illumos zones, I mean, that's what I had. I had SimH running in an Illumos zone. So let me see if I can get in here. Yeah, no, that is not a happy camper for some reason. So what I probably should have done is shared a key with that. But you see how you can share the the passwords there. But I'll tell you what, let's do that. We'll do this. So I think I had a CentOS 6 eval. So we'll KVM this. We'll set admin password there. And we'll give this an alias. So here we're going to be doing CentOS virtualized as KVM using that image. We can set a host name here too. Uninspired. But yeah, what I am inspired to do is get some proper server hardware. To be running this on. So yeah, so my IP is conflicted. So it does at least check that, and you can then search by IP, which is pretty cool. 195. Okay, so that is better. Let me see if I can get a console here. Yep, and Windows has come up. So I guess we'll set up the networking driver. Oh, I don't know Windows. Let's see. Device Manager. One of the most annoying things about working for a large company, and I'm now working for a much larger company, is annoying, is having to deal with their provided gear. So, I mean, I had my choice, I think, a Windows laptop or a Windows or Mac, and it, neither one is good. I assume I'm under computer management. Yeah, I probably should have given it 4 gig. But yeah, so you can see all I'm virtualizing here on an i5 34 something with 8 gigs of DDR3, 1333 megahertz. It's a pretty powerful hypervisor. Am I completely... Device Manager. Why does Windows have to be so difficult? Okay, thankfully that drive I put in there is still there. The ISO image. So the party piece here is, I need to get to a, what is it, command prompt. What is PowerShell? We'll do PowerShell. So if you remember, what we did was we set up the resolvers and the the IP address and the everything like that. So now let's see if we can get out to the outside world. We'll use Internet Explorer here. Hopefully networking works. Does networking work? It's IP config. Let's see, so where is our IP address? Yep, so the 210 we put in there. Oh, it is slow. slow. And we should have our default route in here as well. I assume you get your route table the same way. Gateway. But yeah, so our configuration gets populated here. We didn't have to set anything up. Here it automatically pulls it via DHCP, one would assume. So it's kind of spoofing the DHCP. So now we have a working Windows 10 VM. I mean, that took a while, but again, I am really thrashing the disk on this thing. It's got a 1 terabyte SATA, might even be SATA 2. I don't know. Yeah, I may be setting something incorrect here, right? So it's pulling the metadata, and it should set up that those passwords I set, and maybe setting them to password was a mistake. Yeah, so maybe that was part of the problem, but that should work. I don't know what's going on there. Internal. Let me pull up a web browser here. Sorry for the distraction here. This is pretty amazing. I just checked my chat to see if there's anything new in this. 8 people watching this. I know it's it's probably 1 in the afternoon in Germany by now, or almost that, but it is surprising. This is pretty obscure stuff, and I am tired and probably not making a whole lot of sense at this point. Let's see. Yeah, so root password and admin password. I don't know what. I don't know why that's not working. Okay, well, that's a little bit of extra stuff I don't need to worry about. So let's see, maybe it's because I'm setting it to password. Let's try something different. One of these things that people think is a good password. So we'll stop this guy, and we'll delete it. We haven't deleted a VM yet. Is Windows still running? Yep. Let me. Anyone in the chat mention a good Windows disk benchmark? I want to see if we can cheat Windows disk performance with ZFS on the back. We'll come back to that. We'll just delete that. Couldn't be any simpler. So some other VM admin stuff is we can do an order. Type order them by type. So or to get just the options of types, let's do reorder the list. Sort them by RAM and type. So there we go. We can see our RAM in ascending order, and we probably also want state. Let's just pull our running. So VM admin, incredibly powerful command, right? So much you can do with it. Again, probably want to have some other layer of control here, rather than doing what I'm doing and just, you know, typing JSON for an hour, which can get a little tedious. So our new CentOS KVM is running, so let's see if we can get in there. Bizarre. So that did not require a root password at all. Something's interesting going on there. Take a look at shadow. Yeah, and the root shadow is empty. So something a little goofy happening there, where it's not setting the root password. But no matter, we now have a what was that, 2 CPUs? One CPU, KVM virtualized CentOS image. With our Ethernet address correctly set. See what we have on the PCI bus. And as you can see here on the bottom, both the network controller and SCSI are both PCI, both VirtIO. I'm probably going to have to wrap this stream up in a few minutes because I started a little off and tired, and now I've gone to the, you know, I'm probably going to be less and less coherent as this goes on. But as I said, call out in the chat if there's anything in particular you'd like to see before I wrap this up, or if there's any good disk benchmark for Windows that we can run to see if how fast this zvol is with VirtIO from a Windows perspective. And hey, why don't we do? Sorry about that. My dog is in the background here. I figure we might want to do one more KVM. Should I do NetBSD or Slackware? The other thing to note is that you can add your own images and brands. I mean, there's so much we could do on SmartOS, right? And I've kind of just touched the surface here a little bit, and you know, I've been playing around with it maybe only for a couple weeks, right? And a lot of that was just banging my head against the wall to try to get the promiscuous filtering to turn on and setting up a build environment, etc. So there's a lot of other things. As you see here, Spice. Apparently there's a way to get Spice enabled on the VMs working. But I think we'll be doing more stuff on this at a later date. So I guess we'll do NetBSD. We don't need 40 gigs. A smaller disk here, and I'll give it 196. I have my resolvers. NetBSD 7.1. Let's get this guy a second interface, right? So I know it's all just on one. We're on one main NIC, so one host NIC. But if you had multiple, you might want to, virtualize a firewall or some other network function. You virtualize a switch. We'll put this one on the admin interface. Set this one to primary. Okay, that should do it, I think. Conflicting addresses all the time. So again, do the once boot option so we can get to the do the first boot off the CD. And so on my other screen here, found what we want is crystal disk mark. For the Windows disk benchmark. No idea. What's a Shizuku edition? Definitely want the English installation messages. $10 gigs. I am. I'm live. Sorry, I had to say hi to the lady wife. We'll just accept the partition sizes. We don't need much. We're just accepting defaults. And see how this is going. Go back over here. Hopefully I'm putting it on the desktop correctly. It looks like I am. That was a long time to wait for it to do its thing. 1 gig might be a little bit aggressive. Let's do 100 meg. And see how fast it will go. See how we're going on there. And take a look at our arc. So you see how tiny my arc size is? 1.2 gig. No wonder the performance is not what it should be. There we got up to almost 80 megs a second. Close that. So those are some pretty impressive numbers, right? So a half gigabyte per second read speed almost. So my guess is that's the caching there, because it's, what is that? Is that sequential? I don't know. There should be some hover over. But pretty impressive numbers here for the virtualization. And again, a beefier system, and I think this would be even better, right? So again, ZFS likes a lot of memory. I'm virtualizing a bunch of stuff right now with 8 gigs total memory. So that should give you an idea of the power here, that it's incredibly powerful, even on something this puny, system this puny. Maybe the write speeds will be pretty bad, but yeah, this just has some consumer Western Digital, 1 terabyte drive in it. And we're compressing it here. We're using LZ4 compression, which so let's see how much we were able to compress that Windows image to. Oh, I didn't compress Windows. No wonder. That explains it. So yeah, but still not bad at all, huh? For that amount of throughput. So even, what are these? The random, what's that? Almost 5,000 IOPS. Pretty cool, and we're writing at 16 megs a second. Yeah, let's see. So you see this got 198. And it picked up the name server and the route and the IP. We'll do the other interface. This should come up to 199. 199, yep. Let's just install package in just for kicks while this is running. Probably got too ambitious with my two network interfaces. Okay, well, it is 6 in the morning. I do hate to have to bring the stream to a close here, but getting a little bit delirious. You know, the almost 24 hours of the day are coming to the close. But I thank everyone who's watching. And if you're watching this played back, so not live, leave a comment, any additional stuff on SmartOS you'd like to see. Or in the chat right now, you can leave a message about any additional SmartOS things you want to see, be it further virtualization stuff, maybe setting up a new brand for LX zones, creating images and creating a local image repository, building packages with package source, or building SmartOS itself. So please let me know. And again, thanks everyone for watching the stream.